James Grande, welcome into the Better Baseball MLB DFS Playbook live show here, breaking down Tuesday's 12-game main slate. James, Howard Bender on the playbook today. That is out for everybody. If you're already a subscriber to Fantasy Alarm, you have the All-Pro package. You're already looking and checking out all the hard work Mr. Roto Buzz Guy did today. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, well, go ahead and join today. FantasyAlarm.com/all-pro. Promo code MLB50 saves you 50% off the first 6 months. Get access to all of our premium content there, not just MLB, but all sports covered for the first 6 months at just $19.98 a month. And we have our access to our premium Discord. All the good things coming with the subscription, so subscribe today. James, how are we doing, man? Tuesday. It's here.
Happy Tuesday. Big slate per usual, as per every Tuesday, always the biggest slates. And a lot of interesting things have taken place today. The primary news topic of the day is Elly De La Cruz, number one prospect across Major League Baseball, is being called up. Not only is he being called up, he is batting fourth for the Cincinnati Reds today, taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. And he's making his debut at his home ballpark, which is Great American. And we know that is as good of a hitting environment as possible. We also have the other most offensive-minded park in play tonight in Coors Field. So we have the best two hitting environments in baseball tonight in Coors in Great American, just to go along with 12 games tonight. So very interesting slate, a lot of good pitching, obviously a lot of good offenses when you just factor in those two parks and the teams that are in them. So should be a fun Tuesday slate. Should be a fun Elly De La Cruz day.
Yeah, happy Elly De La Cruz Day to everybody who's tuning in. And guys, if you guys are watching here, and I know a lot of you are rolling in now, if you have any questions for today's slate, feel free to type them in the chat. James and I are more than happy to answer those for you guys as we go along and break down everything that is happening on tonight's slate here. James, when we go take a quick look over into Las Vegas, why don't we talk about some of the high game totals and spreads that we should be paying attention to here tonight?
Yeah, so when we're breaking down some of the money line favorites, nothing's changed in terms of the biggest favorite on the board, Mitch Keller. It's only gotten bigger. Open minus 222 against the Oakland Athletics. That has ballooned anywhere from minus 250 over on DraftKings to minus 290 over on FanDuel. So Mitch Keller and the Pirates are massive favorites tonight against the Oakland Athletics. Kevin Gausman minus 145 against the Houston Astros. Tony Gonsolin and the Dodgers against the Elly De La Cruz. The Cincinnati Elly De La Cruzes are plus 160. Tony Gonsolin minus 190 on the road. We have James Paxton and the Boston Red Sox and Shane Bieber and Cleveland Guardians pretty much even. Minus 115 to Paxton on the road. Bryce Elder's a sizable favorite in the Braves, minus 165 on the money line there. We have Joe Musgrove in the late night window, minus 135 as a big favorite. Dane Dunning, minus 140. Dane Dunning and the Texas Rangers take on the St. Louis Cardinals. When we go over to the over-unders, this is where things get interesting. We have 10 implied runs in Arizona and Washington. Some places 9.5, most places 10, but still 9.5 is a good total. We opened LA and Cincinnati at 10 implied runs, Sean. It is now ballooned everywhere to 10.5. No surprise there when you factor in Luke Weaver on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds this evening. 10.5 implied runs now in Mets Braves. And you and I had talked about it last night that it was kind of surprising because Bryce Elder's a good pitcher. The Mets are batting Dan Vogelbach fifth. And yet that game went from 9.5 to 10.5 everywhere. 10.5 implied runs. Some places the over is the favorite currently. 12.5 is what the San Francisco Giants and Colorado Rockies opened at, John. 11 implied runs, down in a run and a half. And we've seen this kind of trend a couple times this year where first games at Coors Field has not been so fruitful for many teams. So maybe, the bettors are sharp to it. The under being bet significantly. Significant. If a run and a half from open, and that's where we sit. And then 10 implied runs here in the Cubs and Angels. And that is the one of two of our late night hammers. We have a lot of high implied totals.
Yeah.
9.5 in St. Louis, Texas, I'd even mentioned. Like, there's a lot of good pitching, but there's also a lot of implied offense on.
Yeah. We have some weather to pay attention to here on the slate as well. Oakland, Pittsburgh, we have wind blowing out. Chicago, New York, we have wind blowing out to right field here tonight, as if that ballpark needed any help down the right field line there. We have winds blowing in Cleveland, Boston matchup there. Mets, Atlanta, potential for some rain, maybe a late start there. And then in Coors, also some rain there could cause a delay. So always key to pay attention to the weather, pay attention to the wind. Sometimes that is certainly can be a boost or a detriment to either hitting or pitching. So go check out the MLB Weather Center that we have over at Fantasy Alarm there, and make sure your lineups are not going to be in danger when it comes to building out there today. James, let's get into it. Again, if you guys are in chat, you have any questions for us here today, feel free to throw them in there. And we're going to talk about some pitching. Our guy JT in chat already asking about Tommy Henry, so why not just go down to the value tier here? $7,000 going up against Washington. He is a lefty. It's going up against Washington. We have generally avoided left-handed pitching against the Nationals here, but as we talked about of late, Nationals been hammering righties. Tommy Henry coming off of a tremendous start, 7 shutout innings against Colorado. Answer JT's question. Tommy Henry, question mark. Are we in on the D-backs lefty tonight?
Not in on 3 question marks. We could leave it at the 1. So shout out to you, JT, with your 3 question marks. Here's the 2 key things we need to know. 1, Tommy Henry faced Colorado Rockies on the road his last start. And Colorado is 29th in the league in OPS against left-handed pitching. They also have a 25.9% strikeout rate. Are either of those numbers good, John?
No. Actually, they're terrible. They're actually terrible.
Actually, they are in fact terrible. Yeah. Tommy Henry is also a guy that has very limited strikeout upside, but had a boost in strikeouts due to a decent matchup against Colorado. The Washington Nationals this year, John, point number 2.
Yep.
Despite being good against right-handed pitching of late, on the year, they rank 7th in OPS against left-handed pitching. Not 7th from the bottom, not 7th 3 rows over.
Overall.
7th from the top, overall. And it's something that we've mentioned time and time again. They are 7th in OPS, they are 7th in WOBA, and they have a 17% strikeout rate this year against a guy who does not miss bats. That is the worst strikeout rate in the league. No. Simply put, no. I'm not playing Tommy Henry. I have little to no interest in Tommy.
Yeah, not the right spot. Henry was a guy that struck out in AAA, and in the minor leagues, we actually talked about that on the show. A guy that at minor league level was able to get strikeouts, but at the major league level hadn't shown that. And then we talked about how bad Colorado was missing bats, and he goes out and has 7 strikeouts. But even as you said, 17% strikeout rate on the year. If you want to cut that down last 2 weeks sample size, a little bit better. Washington 19% strikeout rate, and their numbers lately have, again, they flipped. Last 2 weeks against righties, smoking them. Last 2 weeks against lefties, not really doing the same amount of damage here, but again, a tough out regardless here. So Tommy Henry, not my favorite guy in that 7K range. So we might as well just jump into the 7K range. We'll talk about our top starters, obviously, as we go through here, but 7K range, we do like a few different pitchers here, James. We agreed on Joe Musgrove here at $7,800 in a really good spot here today to go. His DraftKings prop at 17.5 outs was at -160 on the over, so they're pretty much thinking getting at least 6 innings here out of Joe Musgrove. Coming off of a really good start against Miami, coming off of a really good start against the Yankees here. Looking to keep it 3 in a row. I guess the one downside has been the strikeouts. But, Seattle, a team that has struck out a lot this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is a top 10 matchup in every facet. 25, almost 26% strikeout rate for Seattle against right-handed pitching. They're 24th in terms of OPS. They're same exact number in terms of WOBA against right-handed pitching. So, everything just kind of points to Musgrove. as someone who used Musgrove in his last start against Miami, and maybe it was the fact that they were already up big going into the 7th inning, no reason to take him out going into the 7th with 80 pitches. That is the frustrating part, because there's, again, like, why not save your bullpen in that instance? Maybe they needed work
Mhm.
going into that start. 6 innings, 80 pitches, and it's not like he came out for the 7th and he didn't. He just didn't come into the
Right.
game. That would be my only worry, because now we're in back-to-back games where he's thrown less than 90 pitches, but, like, it's a great overall matchup. He's projected to be the second highest pitcher on the slate, one of 2 pitchers that are projected over 30%.
Mhm.
And you and I talked about it. This 7K range has the second highest projected owned pitcher, the third highest projected owned pitcher, and the fourth highest projected owned
Yeah.
pitcher. That everyone is living in this range because everyone also wants to pay up for the
Yeah.
Dodgers and wants to get us some cores exposure.
Yep.
So this 7K range, Musgrove included, is super
I
elite.
got to be honest with you. When we talked on the podcast this morning, I thought I was going to get Freddie Peralta maybe as a contrarian play on
No.
this slate.
Yep.
Not the case. A lot of people also seemingly are understanding that Baltimore over the last 2 weeks has not been a very good hitting offense, especially losing Cedric Mullins, and they've not been very good in general against right-handed pitching this season. Again, that's all dipped down even more the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching. Freddie Peralta at home has an ERA around 3. A guy that still has a K per 9 around 9. He just isn't going deep into games, so you don't see those 10, 11 strikeout games. But a guy that is a strikeout per inning, he's minus one. I want to say minus 130 or minus 140 on the over 5.5 strikeouts tonight as well. So I liked Freddie Peralta a lot this morning. That hasn't changed. I just wish he was less rostered, honestly,
Yeah.
because it is interesting now. If we do want to get contrarian, one of the guys that you and I agree on as maybe a top pitcher overall on the slate is James Paxton. And we have the wind now blowing in Cleveland, an offense that isn't very good. And I've been
Nope.
obviously wavered on Paxton a lot this year, but I've also pitched everybody against Cleveland. So that won't change here tonight. And then if these rostership numbers on James Paxton are real and I'm getting leverage now on the field, I'd be willing to get there.
Yeah. So, like, 5 pitchers tonight are being rostered, right?
Yeah.
Like, 5. Gossman, Musgrove, Peralta, Schmidt, Mitch Keller. And then there's the rest of the field, and included James Paxton in that. He is getting double-digit ownership, but just squeaking into
Right.
the double digits. It's not like 26% or more like the other 5. And you know what? Like, Cleveland is a team that doesn't strike out, much like we just talked about with Washington. But the difference is Cleveland is bottom 3 in every category offensively.
Mhm.
They're 28th in OPS. They're 28th in WOBA. They have a 128 ISO, which is 28th.
Yeah.
Like, it is just flat bad against every split, every metric. They don't walk a lot. Like, they don't do anything offensively.
Right.
And Paxton, although, like, we have seen, like, obviously he blew up against the
Mhm.
Angels. That was a tough matchup for him in a tough ballpark in general. We got a floor of 5 strikeouts through his 4 starts. We've seen the pitch count in 2 of the 4, 100. Boston is not afraid to
Right.
just let it go because they're like, well, he's going to break down eventually. So, like, let's just get as many pitches and innings out of him as we can. He has a lot of upside. St. Louis isn't a team that strikes out a lot. He had 9.
Yeah.
Cincinnati was a middle of the road strikeout team against left-handed pitching. He had 8. Like, it's a very good spot for James Paxton, who, again, we just don't look at him as a good pitcher. I think more so because he's just been oft injured,
Yeah.
more than it is that he isn't a good talent. He has always been a good talent. He's just never healthy enough
Right.
to, like, consistently show it.
If you're spending up today, Keller, Gossman, Brown, where are we looking?
Gossman, I would rank them Keller, Gossman, Brown, and I think the first 2 a tier above Brown. I'm not necessarily sold on Toronto's offense continuing to just be bad. And I
Yeah.
know that they're going to break out. I think Keller has the best matchup on the board, and I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking. Oakland is dead last in pretty much every
Right.
category, including strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. And we talked about on the podcast this morning, there is reason to believe Mitch Keller's just been very unlucky in the last two
Right.
starts. He had his last start, BABIP was over 6 or 7, and his xFIP was 2. Like nothing, and the strikeouts have been tremendous. So Keller won for me. Gossman, obviously, with the strikeout upside,
What do you make
is
of
right
it?
there
It,
as
it
well.
just kind of depends on where you're looking for your rostership projections. But Gostin at almost 40% tonight.
Yep.
Does that make sense for you going up against the Houston lineup? That Gossman is 40%, because for $100 cheaper, you get Keller almost 15% cheaper. So in terms of rostership, that feels like a good leverage play as well, if these projections sort of play out the way we've seen
Right.
them.
I would agree in most instances. I would say that the field is getting to a guy who, has 5, 11 strike or 10 strikeout games or more this year.
Sure.
Like Keller has been largely great, and I'm not disputing that. But he has 2 double-digit strikeout games where Gossman has done it 5 times already this
Mhm.
year. So I get it why the field is doing it. I'm also just going to take the lesser rostered of the two because he just has an infinitely better matchup.
Gossman's had 2 starts this year where he's given up more than 3 earned runs. One of them was against Boston. The other one against Houston. Gave up 7 runs. So
Yeah, I mean Houston is, we saw last night, and not to compare, obviously, like
Alek Manoah, who did in fact get
I'm not
optioned, as we talked about, was going
to their
yeah,
complex, not
yeah,
even to like the minors,
yeah.
just
He's
off to the
literally
side,
throwing
Alex.
batting practice to rookie league right now. Like that's what he's doing in Florida. So
Like I'm not going to compare these two because obviously that's not comparable, but like we saw the thump that Houston can
yeah.
provide offensively.
Jolks and Myers both homered at the bottom of their lineup. Tucker and
Right.
Jordan homered at the top of their lineup. Bregman was their worst hitter in the middle of the lineup. So, listen, I agree with you. Obviously, ridiculous strikeout upside, but Keller's been no schlub striking out either, and just a far easier matchup. So, if you're telling me
Right.
that 40% on Gossman and 25% on Keller, I'll take the 25% on Keller
Agreed.
for my lineups here tonight. Before moving on, I got to get your thoughts here on 2 more pitchers just because the chat's talking about them. Kyle Gibson, our guy Mark in the chat here, always throws us Gibson. We always tell him no, except for the one, I think his last start where he ended up sucking for us. Would you play Gibson here against Milwaukee?
First question, John, is Kyle Gibson Mark's cousin or in any relation to Mark? Because he has a fond, he loves Kyle Gibson. I don't know anyone who likes Kyle Gibson more than Mark.
He just must fit the bills for him. I don't know, but no one's playing Kyle Gibson, so give me another low roster play. Well, because like we mentioned, a lot of people are living in the 7K range. They're not living with Kyle Gibson.
I will say, like, Milwaukee, for a team that was good against right-handed pitching earlier in the year, not good anymore.
They're missing Willie Adames, like
True,
the thump.
true. And Rowdy hasn't hit anything in like a month. Top 10 in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching now. They are 20th in OPS against right-handed pitching. Like they used to be top 10 in pretty much every category.
Here's my problem with Kyle Gibson. Best case scenario is like the New York Toronto starts. 7 innings, shutout, 7 innings, winner and run. He got wins in both those starts, 22 and 23 fantasy points. I mean, that's not really a lot of fantasy points when you're throwing 7 shutout. He just doesn't strike anybody out. He had that rare 11 strikeout game. I know Milwaukee strikes out. I get it. Could have a ceiling strikeout game here. I'm not going to go Kyle Gibson, but Mark, you're in that 3 max tonight. Why not, right? Why not throw a low contrarian dart at Kyle Gibson in a lineup at 3%, and if he goes 7 innings and earned and 8 Ks because Milwaukee strikes out, you got a leg up on the field. And then ice through, Chase in the chat here, Gonsolin, Paxton combo here. If you look on the surface numbers, Tony Gonsolin looks pretty legit. 177 ERA, 0.9 whip. If you go on over to Fangraphs, though, and you take a look at Tony Gonsolin, his numbers tell a little bit of a different story. That 1.77 ERA, 4.83 expected ERA, 4.6 FIP, 5.1 xFIP for Tony Gonsolin on the year. He has just a 6.3 K per nine. He is living with a 155 batting average in balls in play. Now, that said, last season, 24 starts, 207 batting average in balls in play. The guy doesn't pitch
That's
to
lucky.
he's not pitching to hard contact. The difference was last year he had an 8.2 K per nine, and his walks per nine were 2.4. It's almost 3.3. So strikeouts way down, walks are up. He's getting incredibly lucky. He's giving up a homer per nine. He's in the Great American Small Park. I think, and Dan Servadidio talked about this, he liked the over in this game. He liked the Reds run line in this game as well. He's kind of fading Gonsolin here. I think people may be just looking at Tony Gonsolin and being like, oh, 177 ERA and all of these things and looking to play him here tonight. He's a fade for me at 8K because those underlying numbers are terrifying. And plus, you got to count the Elly boost for something. I know, some people like to take sort of those momentum changers in play or not. I mean, think about that Reds lineup with that locker room today. The number one prospect in baseball hitting cleanup is now in your lineup. Like it's got to change the feel, at least on the team a little bit here. So while there's nothing to quantify that, it keeps me off Gonsolin here tonight.
I mean, I would say I'd more so fade him because I like the tier just simply below him. Like I'm playing Clark Schmidt over him at 79. We talked about the White Sox only 2 lefties tonight. Bold strategy, but Clark Schmidt doesn't get hit by righties, only gets hit by lefties. So the White Sox put 2 lefties in the lineup. I'd rather play Musgrove for 200 cheaper, and I'd rather play Peralta. I know the ownership discrepancy is obviously significant between them, but you're asking in the chat, Gonsolin-Paxton combo, you're already getting different with Paxton. Right. You don't need to be completely contrarian with your every move you make. You're being contrarian enough with Paxton. If he goes for 25 to 30 fantasy points at 10%, that's already a W. Okay. So I just prefer the other tier. I'm not really I don't really subscribe to that, like what you just mentioned either. I'd rather just numbers be in front of me to tell me why someone's a good play versus a bad play. I don't like the peripheral numbers. I think that's more quantifiable than getting
momentum.
Rah in the locker room person.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well. Again, the number, if you look at his splits too, lefties on the year hitting 111, righties are hitting 190, but it's just he's a 155 batting average in balls in play, just not sustainable. And now you're going into one of the best hitting environments in baseball. So I'm off Gonsolin there. I think the Reds could be, I don't know, maybe a sneaky little stack there tonight. So I like it. James, a little new thing we're going to do here before we get into the positional breakdowns here. We want to kind of talk about some batting order and batting lineups that we have here for today. Just kind of go through maybe things that are standing out to us, things that have changed. Like you mentioned, the White Sox, they're just 2 lefties in their lineup tonight. Benintendi, Gavin Sheets, obviously Yohan Moncada is a switch hitter, so they'll have 3. Elly De La Cruz getting called up and stuck immediately, hitting 4th here tonight. But what other sort of lineup notes are sticking out to you here tonight?
Well, if you want to just, not a homer call, but the Yankees without Aaron Judge tonight due to the toe injury, still things coming in, might be broken. He said he doesn't know what a broken toe feels like, so he's not sure if he has a broken toe. That could obviously be terrible news for the Yankees, but in his stead, Giancarlo Stanton hitting 2nd this evening, Josh Donaldson hitting 4th. So once again, just a pretty subpar Yankees lineup, not suggesting Lucas Giolito, just pointing that out. Elly De La Cruz obviously hitting 4th is interesting. The Royals leading Maikel Garcia off this evening is interesting. The Dodgers have their premier, I would essentially say their premier lineup in tonight: Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, JD Martinez, David Peralta, Jason Hayward, Vargas, Rojas this evening. The Nationals, let's see, is our boy in the lineup? He is not in the lineup tonight. Vargas, no Vargas tonight for the Nationals. That is unfortunate because he has been hitting lefties extremely well. The Phillies going with the Trey Turner fourth experiment once again.
He hits 2 home runs. You might as well, right?
4 hits, 2 home runs, run it back. Let's see, what else do we have? The Guardians are getting Josh Bell back. He was on paternity leave for a few games. He is a switch hitter. They implemented him in the 5 hole this evening. Brandon Belt back in the lineup for the Blue Jays, hitting 4th. I know he had day off Monday. That made Howard Bender a little teary-eyed on a call that you and I were on this morning.
You made a comment earlier today about the Giants making a roster move. We don't have an official lineup for San Francisco here, but thoughts on maybe San Francisco getting a little bit healthier going into course tonight?
Yeah, they optioned Bryce Johnson, who's been their utility outfielder this year. Played 25 games, just hit 175. But the only reason you'd probably send somebody down is if you think Conforto and Yastrzemski or one or both are going to be active tonight. Conforto's missed a few games with the heel injury that's kept him out for a couple times this year. Yastrzemski had the side tightness is what manager
Jock
Gabe
Peterson
Kapler
is going to be activated today,
and Jock Peterson also active. So they could actually just have like potentially a full-fledged outfield heading into course tonight. We don't, again,
3 lefty outfielders back in the lineup potentially against Dinelson Lamet tonight. Is that what we're saying?
Yep. And potentially like Sable DHing, and then maybe even like, implement and what's his name? Patrick Bailey catching. Like they could just have all these lefty bats
Monte Wade,
against
right?
Monte, playing first. So the Giants' potential with lefties is kind of endless. How about Dan Vogelback hitting 5th tonight?
Makes me like Bryce Elder a little bit.
Bryce Elder a little bit more, right? Not relevant today's slate, but Jacob deGrom undergoing Tommy John surgery. He is done for the Texas Rangers this evening. And then the latest lineup that we got, John, I find this a little interesting. Milwaukee is sending out John Singleton in the 2 hole this evening.
Maybe Kyle Gibson, you do fire up, like
10 home runs, 483 slug at AAA this year.
A guy that was out of baseball.
They're trying Eric Timms again, huh? They're trying to do this whole thing again.
Did Singleton go to the KBO or Japan? Because like Timms went to Japan and hit like 50 home runs.
Yeah, he sure did. Yes, he sure did.
So maybe if that's what they're doing, but Singleton was made a lot of headlines as a top prospect. Before ever playing a game, the Astros gave him like a $10 million contract.
Yep.
And then he came up and he had about 130, and that was it. They bought him out of that deal. They paid him a whole bunch of money to not play baseball for them anymore. So that was one of those shocking contract deals for a guy that's never played that did not pan out. So that is interesting. Singleton there hitting, what did you say, 2nd tonight?
Second for Milwaukee.
Okay. All right, let's go into catch a spot here, James. Again, we won't spend too much time talking about players we're not going to be targeting. Talk to me about your top catcher option here today.
Top catcher is W.D. Smith. Luke Weaver's been terrible against righties. We get the Great American Field bump. Hitting 308 on the year, 343 over his last 10. Give me W.D. Will Smith as my top catching option of the day.
All right, I like the top spend. I'll go back. Go back to Yan Gomes here. At $3,100 as well. Hopefully, he won't find himself pinch hit for it. That was kind of upsetting.
That was a tilter. That was a
little tilter, but another lefty on the mound. We know Yan Gomes historically kills left-handed pitching. So Yan Gomes at 31 and Will Smith for sure, the top 2 guys that we like for top-end pricing and value. In the mid-tier, we know Coors will be popular, whether it be Bailey or Sable, both catcher eligible for tonight's slate. Anybody else that catcher for you here tonight, man?
Ownership going towards Smith, Sean Murphy, and Gabriel Moreno. Those are where the directions the field is going to. I understand getting to Murphy because the righty struggles for Carlos Carrasco. That's been something that you've pointed out a lot on this show.
Yeah,
righties have been what have killed Carlos Carrasco.
Yeah, they have been. That's his struggles have been against righties. He's dominated lefties, which is why again, you put your home run call tweet out there today, and a lot of people were doing Matt Olson. I was like,
Matt Olson, yep.
oh, the numbers haven't really panned that one out. That would be the way that one goes, but we'll find out and see.
That's just the way the cookie crumbles, John.
Oh, Cookie Carrasco,
Bang.
Cookie Crumbles, Matt Olson, got it. First base position here again. Matt Olson is $5,600. Not where I'm going tonight. That'll be Sir Freddie Freeman at $5,400. I think we're both in agreement. Is the top first baseman for today.
Yeah, top first. This is going to be a trend throughout the show, so buckle in. Dodgers are going to be really popular tonight. They are actually projected to be higher owned than Coors, for what that's worth. And that kind of correlates with the line change in Coors that we saw 12.5 open, 11 runs now implied. So it's definitely Freddie Freeman. I think the contrarian option here at the top, John, is Shohei Ohtani, and I'll list him at first base because we have too many outfield options to include Shohei Ohtani in, like, that we're going to get to. Look, Wisniewski was not good as a starting pitcher, and lefties are what gave him massive amounts of trouble, specifically power. 329 ISO allowed to left-handed bats this year, 399 WOBA. Shohei Ohtani, 289 ISO, 389 WOBA against right-handed pitching this year. Also, Wisniewski, 58% hard hit rate allowed to left-handed bats. Everyone's going to go to Freeman, and I get it. I'm going to Freeman. Yeah. But I do think Ohtani at the top, not Olson, provides you the best pivot if you did want to pivot off probably the most popular first baseman.
Sure. I think Ohtani is certainly interesting. Again, I like Freeman. That's my top guy. My value first baseman, and I guess maybe more of a mid-tier, depending on how you look at pricing, is Anthony Rizzo here at home. Numbers for Rizzo at home this year are insane. And then you look at Giolito against lefties, 495 slug, 352 WOBA against left-handed hitters. And then Rizzo at home, just, again, crazy numbers. I'm not really too worried about Aaron Judge not being in that lineup here. If anything, maybe it helps Rizzo out a little bit more. But 390, at home this year, I did this earlier, 362 with a 612 slug at home this season. So give me Anthony Rizzo at 4K today.
Yeah, love Rizzo at home. That's death taxes, Anthony Rizzo at home. I'll stay at that same price point and go Lamonte Wade in Coors Field. We know how bad Dinelson Lamet has been this year. Just for context, 467 WOBA allowed, 242 ISO to left-handed bats, 48% hard hit rate. Lamonte Wade, 201 ISO, 403 WOBA against righties. Game blouses for Lamonte Wade.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I don't know what you see for rostership there on the Giants here today, but could be a pretty good stack, alt stack, given the pricing. We talk about like everybody's gonna play the Dodgers. Well, you got to find a cheap way to get them in there. Stacking with the Giants because of how cheap their pricing is today. That's a really interesting way to go about getting your Coors exposure and getting your Dodgers exposure. If those numbers are right in terms of expected rostership on the Giants, I am 100% in on that one for sure. There wasn't much else for me at the value spot. I don't know if there was any other guys that you just wanted to throw out there for people at home.
No, I mean, Emmanuel Rivera is projected to be pretty popular. That's due to the multi-position eligibility. Anytime we get multi-position eligibility, usually they're a little higher owned. Jake Irvin has been bad against both sides of the split. Emmanuel Rivera has been pretty good lately. Not a lot of power, 343 over his last 10 games, but no home runs. So, like, if you're stacking Diamondbacks, which, could be a pretty contrarian stack tonight, I don't think a lot of people get there, especially, when you're paying for Dodgers and Coors. I think Emmanuel Rivera could be a cheap punt if you wanted to go that direction.
Yep, I'm with you there. Over on at second base here, again, your top guys are expensive. Betts and Simeon right up there. Simeon hitting over 300 now against lefties. Betts, obviously we know Weaver, back-to-back 2 home run games. So certainly a guy that can do the damage. But who is your top second baseman here for tonight?
So Thairo Estrada coming off the IL again, another Giant we're getting back here tonight, John. Really hard not to play him at $5,000. That's actually cheaper than we've had him in a long time. He's been like
$6K for a
53,
bit, right?
$6K, yeah. And we know Thairo Estrada has excelled against right-handed pitching specifically, and Dennis Lamet doesn't discriminate righties or lefties. He stinks against both.
Right.
I mean, 405 WOBA allowed to righties this year, 185 ISO. So if Estrada is activated and in the lineup, we don't have anything as of now from the Giants, but the expectation is he's going to be activated, then it would be him. If he's not, you could obviously use Mookie Betts here. It would be Ketel Marte for me. I just mentioned, I think that the Diamondbacks are a contrarian stack going up against Washington. Jake Irvin has been good for one start this year and has been awful in every other outing he's made. And he's been really, really bad, especially against left-handed bats. And something that you and I have talked about a lot about Ketel Marte is his ability to hit left-handed pitching. It's been kind of even this year. He has 6 of his home runs against righties this year. He's been really good of late, just in general. But he has a 330 WOBA against righties this year. And Jake Irvin, that's where he's been really bad against lefties. 398 WOBA allowed, 263 ISO. So if Estrada's off the aisle and in the lineup, it's him for me. If he's not, it's Marte.
Sure. Value play for tonight. I think we both like Vargas, 3K.
Yes.
Guy has just a lot of power. Not really, his numbers really don't look good in general, but I mean, we know that this is the right split for him here. So I think that's fine against Weaver. Given how bad righties have been against Weaver, or how bad Weaver has been against righties, I think Vargas is in a good spot here tonight.
Yeah, and the numbers don't look terrible specifically for against right-handed pitching. 188 ISO, 337 WOBA. You mentioned the power. Like he also has a 14% walk rate. So if he's just on base all the time, like he'll be on base for Mookie Betts half the time. Who's in as good of a spot as anyone else on the slate. And you mentioned the Weaver numbers. 403 WOBA allowed, 287 WOBA or ISO to right-handed bats.
Yep. And if you want to spend up for a couple of these other guys in the Dodgers, again, it helps getting a 3K infielder into that lineup. Anybody else for you at second base you think worthy of discussion?
Yeah, I guess if the Giants were to start Blake Wisely, like if he does start in the outfield, he's second base outfield eligible. Any lefty against anyone with a pulse against Dinelson Lamet, it could be an option here.
Third base, the spot where we always look to spend up because there's just so much ridiculous talent here on this slate. We talked about it on the podcast this morning. We have Josh Jung up against a lefty in Liberatore here. $4,800. I still go right back to that, and nobody is playing Texas tonight. So you want a low rostered stack here tonight. Josh Jung hitting 5th against Liberatore, $4,800. That lineup with the Rangers is legit. We've talked about it. Had top to bottom, they're as full as they've been all year long. Their lefties hit lefties. Their righties are now all hitting lefties. It's really coming full circle for them.
Yeah, he's been really good. Now, you mentioned it. The field is not playing him. So you obviously have an edge there. 358 ISO against left-handed pitching is absolutely ridiculous. Liberatore has been good, but like peripherals
small sample
suggest
size,
that there's
starts.
Only a couple starts. The peripherals suggest he's been better than his numbers indicate too. 5.73 xFIP, only an 18% strikeout rate. Jung does kind of strike out a lot, so it's good to see someone on the other side with a low strikeout rate. He actually doesn't strike out that much against lefties, just a 19% strikeout rate. I like Josh Jung as leverage. The field is obviously, honing in on 2 guys. It's Max Muncy, who I think is perfectly fine. He has massive numbers against left-handed pitching, or right-handed pitching from the left side, and Austin Riley. I think the Riley thing is interesting because, again, it just goes to kind of what you're talking about, John. And I just haven't been able to shake the fact that this game opened at 9.5 first off, because we don't typically see that with a really good pitcher on one side of the slate with Bryce Elder pitching. And then not only did it open at 9.5, it rose to, it's been bet up to 10.5.
That's after the lineup comes out with Vogelbach hitting 5th. So it's not
after the lineup. That is really just drawing me in to Atlanta.
A lot of the Braves' best hitters are from the right side of the plate. So I think that's doing a lot. And like I said, righties against Carrasco are the ones doing the damage. It's not the lefties tonight. So sure, Albies will be switch hitting on the wrong side. Rosario will be hitting from the left side, but like who else is a lefty bat in that lineup? Like there's Olsen,
Michael
obviously,
Harris.
but I mean, like, you know, Acuna and Riley are right there from the right side of the plate that can do some damage in that lineup. So
and Murphy.
Murphy, Darno,
three of the top 4.
Both, right? Like
Darno not in the lineup.
Okay.
They're playing 5 righties and 4 lefties tonight.
So I like Riley just for the splits there as well. Same price as Jung, so the pivot off of him there.
Yeah, definitely a pivot. And truthfully, like Jung has been better than everyone else at this position. Like Devers is not doing well. Arenado, we know, like is struggling mightily. McMahon likely gets 2 at bats against a left-handed pitcher. He hasn't been good. Ramirez has not been good all year. Bregman's been good, but we're not obviously targeting Gossman. It feels like Muncy, Jung, Riley are the 3 clear-cut best plays. And then, like, honorable mention to JD Davis but like, the problem is, are you paying $4,700 for JD Davis when you can pay $4,800 for Riley or Josh Jung?
Yeah.
The field is, by the way, getting to JD Davis.
Coors Field, I guess that's where they're at.
It's 100% Coors Field. Well, and we've talked about it a lot this year. He has hit righties much better than he has in the past. That's been the best part of the split this year.
And as we talked about on the stream this morning, or the podcast this morning, no real value at third base today.
No.
Our usual suspects aren't here, and the guys we do like to play are not in great matchups. So we find ourselves spending up tonight at the third base position.
Yeah, just spend up. I think this is a position that we're about to go to a position that has 2 of the best values on the slate. That me and Fantasy Alarm Zone Justin Vreeland just had a very a very positive discussion about in our Discord, and Elly De La Cruz and Tucupita Marcano at shortstop. Both, one is $2,000, one is $2,100. Spend up at third, pay down at shortstop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Shortstop, as we're here, as you mentioned, Elly De La Cruz is hitting cleanup, and he is 4th, $2,000. So, what do we think tonight for the rostership for Elly De La Cruz here?
I don't know, because look, he is not even the highest projected owned shortstop. And this was kind of my argument. You and I have talked about this a lot. Fernando Tatis returned 2K, 20% of the field played him. Royce Lewis returned in a really good matchup, 2K.
He was 2K for like 3 slates, including
20%.
After he homered and nobody played him. Right, 20%.
Elly De La Cruz is making his debut. Second highest roster shortstop of the day, because Tucupita Marcano is leading off at $2,100 in a better spot.
Mm-hmm.
In an infinitely better spot.
Perceived better spot.
Perceived better spot. Correct. I'm not here to argue for one side or the other, because honestly, seeing Marcano more owned, I'd rather play De La Cruz. Surface, Marcano's a better play.
Mm-hmm.
Caprillian's been terrible against lefties. Marcano has very good splits against right-handed pitching. The Pirates have a 5.5 implied team total. Everything really shapes up for the Pirates tonight. On the other hand, Elly De La Cruz hitting 4th. The Reds get Jake Fraley back. It obviously lengthens their lineup with Fraley and De La Cruz in the top half of it. And he's going to be
all those underlying numbers for Gonsolin.
Right, all the underlying and the ballpark. Yeah. Sprinkle on top. It's the second best hitting environment in the league. Yeah. So, like, I think this is a position you just don't mess around with, and you're using Marcano or using De La Cruz. If you want to be different, be my guest. There's Seager. Volpe's hitting 5th tonight. Ezekiel Duran is a good value play if you want to get to Texas. He's $3,000. But, like, why would you not just play one of the 2 free squares tonight?
I agree, because we're going to get to the outfield where there's going to be guys that we want to spend up for tonight.
And we're already spending up at third. We've clearly stated our case for Freddie Freeman as the top first baseman of the day. Yep. Like, it just feels unnecessary to go anywhere else but Marcano or Cruz. And again, you can. I'm not sitting here saying, like, our word is gospel, only play these 2. But, like, why? Why?
Take the free square. The majority of the field is going to be right there with you. We talk good chalk, bad chalk all the time, right? And if either of those two guys go out there and give them 10 fantasy points, which isn't a lot, at 2K, you're behind. You're now behind the 8 ball because you had to figure out where to make up that salary that everybody else got. And what do we look at for pitching? A lot of people living in the mid tier. So it's like 2K shortstop, 7K SP2. You're spending up for Gossman or Keller or I'm blanking on the third pitcher that was up there in the 25% range there.
Clark Schmidt.
Yeah, Clark Schmidt, right. Another
Peralta.
guy. Yeah, probably that whole range there. And then we're going to go to outfield here where you have Acuna over 6K. Ohtani, you mentioned. Betts is over 6K as well. Jordan, Trout, Tatis, Soto, Carroll, like a lot of expensive outfielders here tonight that you're going to try to find a way to get into your lineups, and you need that value. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I think Acuna against Carrasco, if people are in on Riley and they want to play Riley tonight, why not play Riley Acuna? You get the righties there against Carrasco.
Yep. Yeah, and if you want to triple up Sean Murphy, like you could just 1-3-4 that lineup and test the righties versus Carrasco theory that's obviously worked this year.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. My home run call in the Better Sports betting show today was JD Martinez. I think we're both in agreement there. $5,000 here tonight, hitting fifth. Righties are doing the damage against Weaver. JD's hitting righties. Great ballpark. Everything is just queuing up here for JD Martinez, who was initially the cover of tonight's show, but given the Elly De La Cruz call up, we pivoted. Got to be able to pivot. So we pivoted to Elly as the cover, but JD Martinez still very much in our hearts today.
Yeah, and you know what? If you look up and down the Dodgers lineup, who has the highest ISO against right-handed pitching this year? JD Martinez. You know who has the highest WOBA against right-handed pitching this year?
JD Martinez.
JD Martinez. That is correct, John. 2 for 2. You earn a prize.
Thanks.
This is a lineup that includes Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, right? Like, it's a stacked lineup. JD Martinez has been arguably better than all of them lately and against right-handed pitching in general. So he was also my call on the home run tweet that I put out every single morning over on Twitter. And I tag everyone, Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports Network. And he was my home run call. I'm going to change it up for this segment because you stole it. And I will not allow this.
We can both double up.
I'm just kidding. No, it's okay. Nope. You stole it. All good. But I do think he's going to home run. Regardless, I think he's going to hit a home run. It's a good home run call. He has my favorite over 5K. I think the contrarian over 5K is Corbin Carroll. I mentioned it with Ketel Marte, where lefties are just giving Jake Irvin fits. Corbin Carroll's been awesome from start to finish. He has a righty on the mound, which leads to just naturally better ability to steal bases.
He's
like
plus 240 to steal a bag tonight. Dude. I kind of like that. Like the stolen base prop on.
As long as he doesn't hit a home run, as long as he doesn't hit it out twice, like you're probably in like a good spot. Because I think that's my contrarian over 5K play. You can obviously get to Mookie Betts, Acuna, Ohtani, but Carroll would be my contrarian guy away from like those other four.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Going down in the mid-tier range here, guys that I think you can certainly get to. We talked about Cincinnati and the underlying numbers for Gonsolin. Fraley's leading off here tonight at $4,600. I think that's a pretty interesting play to kind of target in on. I like Lane Thomas as well. Home against a lefty, that's a ring a bell. That's what we played last year when it came to Lane Thomas. He's at $4,400 there. Two guys in the mid-range that I'm keying in on.
Yeah, and then it's basically what happens with San Francisco in this tier. Because Conforto's 45, Yastrzemski's 43. You can play Blake Sable 42.
Peterson 41.
Jock Peterson 41. Mitch Haniger 37. Like 5 outfielders that could potentially be in the San Francisco lineup that are all in play because Dinelson Lamet exists in the world. So,
and that nobody is somehow playing, right? Like
nobody's playing them.
It seems now we're looking at multiple sources here too. It's not just one versus another. Like we're just kind of scoping around here to see, what maybe the consensus for rostership is and how nobody's playing the Giants tonight against Dinelson Lamet. It feels like the algos just must be wrong everywhere. I don't know, because I am playing the Giants against Dinelson Lamet. And if you guys are watching here tonight, hopefully you're playing the Giants with us, because we could be in for a pretty good night if what we expect to happen happens and the relationship numbers are as low as they're appearing to be. So, that's I'm with you there, man. I mean, the problem I think we're gonna have is like we have to decide. We could go 3 outfielders or 2 outfielders, I guess, because we want to plug JD Martinez in. Right. Last night we played 3 Astros outfielders. I did. Played Tucker, Jokes, and Jordan. Sweep across. Can't do it. But tonight we like other outfielders on a larger slate.
Yep.
It's hard to want to play Conforto, Yastrzemski, and Peterson or Haniger all in one lineup. But, if you make a multiple lineups, maybe you get there.
If you're making multiple lineups, maybe you can get there, because I also think there's like good value. And to your point, that was the winning trio across the board. If it wasn't Jolks, it included Myers. Like 3 of the 4 Houston outfield combination, was a great play because they all homered. They all had 20 plus fantasy points. Tonight, Jack Sawinski hitting 4th, 3K. I mean, going up against Caprillion, I love that. Stone Garrett, 31. We know he's historically. He has very good home run odds tonight against Tommy Henry. Under plus 300 for Stone Garrett. He had the best odds in that of the Nationals tonight. Like, I like both those guys. I mentioned Jason Hayward, 2,600 on the podcast last night, destroying right-handed pitching this year. 257 ISO for Jason Hayward in the year 2023 is kind of crazy, but it's real.
Yep.
42% fly ball rate for a guy who like always hits grounders. Like, there's a lot of good value elsewhere.
Robbie Grossman's hitting 6th tonight.
Grossman hitting 6th in the Giants or in the Rangers lineup, a team that nobody's playing, who's hit lefties extremely well this year. Yep. So like, I know that, we just saw that approach kind of win all the money last night. It's a new slate. And if you want to do it in one lineup, I'm fine with it. I would say if you're playing multiple lineups, divvy up the exposure. Don't just go 3 Giants, but make sure to divvy up your exposures.
I agree with you. James, let's go to, again, another little new segment we're going to be doing here tonight. We'll get maybe a little bit more creative and actually throw some graphics up here at one point or another. But Grande's Gems and Impemba's Imprints is what we're going to call this for now.
Heck yeah.
We're going to give you our home run call, our top stack, our contrarian stack, our star of the night, and our value play of the night. James, why don't you lead everybody off with Grande's Gems?
So for my home run call tonight, I'm going to go with Mookie Betts. I said you stole my JD Martinez. So if I get both Betts and Martinez right, that's 1.5 points for me. My top stack is obviously going to be the Dodgers. I think that's, just pretty apparent. My contrarian stack, not that contrarian, but I like the value that the Pirates provide tonight, especially Tucapito and Jack Sawinski specifically, both guys under 3K. My star of the night, I'm going right back to the well. Mookie Betts has hit right-handed pitching extremely well. And my value play, sticking pretty much with the theme of the night. Tucapita, Marcano is my value play of the night. I'm eating the chalk over Elly De La Cruz. Look, I think that there is a case to be made for both shortstops. I think both shortstops are an option here for us to get to. If you want to use De La Cruz, if you want to use Marcano, it's fine. I'm going to go Marcano slightly over Elly De La Cruz.
Sounds good. For me here, my home run call, as you kind of alluded to, I'm going JD Martinez, the top stack, the chalk stack here, going with the Dodgers here. Contrarian stack, I guess I have 2. I was in on the Rangers as that top price contrarian stack here tonight again. But if the Giants are honestly going to be unrostered here tonight, the Giants, I guess, will be my value contrarian stack to go with on this slate here. My start of the night, I'm going to stick it with the home run call because if he's going to homer, there's a good chance he's a star as well. JD Martinez, and then the value play. I mean, why not go with the kid, Elly De La Cruz here at 2K? All those underlying numbers for Gonsolin in the Great American Small Park. I know you can't quantify the momentum here, but, could have that special air in the air, we'll say, in Cincinnati here this evening. So, James, with that said, how about we build some lineups for the folks?
Yeah, let's get it.
All righty. Given what we've talked about with rostership here, we were in on Paxton. So we kind of liked Paxton at 86. Would you rather go Keller at 10.9 or find someone in the mid tier here?
Probably the mid tier. And now that's not to say I don't like Keller because I'm playing 3 lineups tonight. I have Mitch Keller in one of them.
Keller and
But
Paxton get us 38 a play. We know we have a 2K infielder.
you just can't play Dodgers, I don't think, with that, right?
Oh, let's find out. We have time here. Let's build a quick lineup. We want Freeman, right? JD, and maybe Hayward.
I would say we'd probably have to play Hayward in this specific build because I don't know. Like I know we're gonna get Elly or Tucapito. Like those are the
Go Jan.
Yep.
Go Vargas, maybe.
Could do that.
Get a 7-8 combo here. Now we have 4,700 for the third baseman. That's Josh Jung, right?
Yep.
And then we have a $4,600 outfielder.
Didn't love this tier, but it's Fraley. Like
Conforto. Conforto.
Oh, true. Well, I'm thinking. We could do if Conforto plays. He's gonna be the highest. He's the highest projected Giant outfielder tonight. Jack Peterson and then Conforto. He's the second highest projected.
Okay. It seems like we know Peterson's going to play here tonight. So let's plug in Peterson and then we'll have the money to go up to the other two if they're in the lineup. So just an example lineup of a 4-stack Dodgers lineup with 2 pitchers that we're fans of here. Paxton, Keller, Gomes, Freeman, Vargas, Jung, Elly De La Cruz, JD Martinez, Jason Hayward, Jock Peterson getting some exposure there to that Cincinnati game. We'll build one more lineup before we go. Would you rather build it with Keller or with Paxton to go at a 7K play?
Let's do. Let's not build. We could also just do 2 mid tiers.
Okay, I'm fine with that. You want to go Peralta Musgrove?
Yeah, I would do Peralta Musgrove.
Peralta Musgrove gives us 43.
I mean, we could literally build anything we want. Let's do Tucapita in this one at shortstop.
Yep.
Split up our lineup builds with the 2 value shortstops of the day.
Sure.
Just to provide.
Did you want Will Smith or did you want to go Yan Gomes?
We could probably afford WD-40 here, right?
Well, we'll find out. I'm assuming we still have to play Hayward.
Maybe we could play Sawinski as a value. Pair him with Tucapita. It would help if you use the S before
my keyboard was hiding from me at the moment. We're still plugging Freeman here.
Maybe that's a sign that it said Iwinski instead of Suwinski that we're not supposed to play.
4,400 a play here. Can we get Estrada at 5K?
Haniger in the outfield.
Did you want to do Haniger?
I'm just throwing out because if we're gonna play a little more cores here. We're $100 off the tier that we want to be.
I know, we're so close. Does that change anything there? Schmidt's is more expensive.
Yeah, he's more expensive.
Value. Well, solves that problem.
Yep, $100 off gets us Elly.
Now there's our 3-man Giants. We got our 3 Dodgers there: Smith, Freeman, and JD Martinez. We can keep the one off Sawinski if you want, but now we have more money to kind of play around with if we needed to. Haniger's there, Elly De La Cruz, JD Davis, Thairo Estrada. So a couple of lineups for everybody there that we're putting out for tonight. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Storm family, again, go to fantasystorm.com/allpro. Use promo code MLB50. You'll save you 50% off the first 6 months. That's $19.98 a month for the first 6 months. And James and I, you get us access to that premium Discord, which James and I are in. Howard Bender's in, Andrew Cooper's in, Justin Vreeland, the whole crew is in that premium Discord. You get access to all of that along with all of our DFS content for the next 6 months for just $20 a month. Plus, if you sign up today, the draft guide's coming out soon. You'll get access to the Fantasy Farm NFL draft guide as well. So no better deal than now to sign up and take advantage of everything we got going on here at Fantasy Alarm. James and I will be back tomorrow. Good luck, everybody.